Welcome to the 7th Lunch and Learn session on operational excellence. This session's topic is improving flow. Establishing the capability to improve performance through improved workflow. This session is sponsored by Jamestown Community College Workforce Readiness. The session is facilitated by Max Krug from Future State Engineering. We hope that you enjoy the session.
Good day, everyone. So welcome to the 7th session on operational excellence. Today's session is going to be on improving flow. And really, how do we establish a capability to improve performance through improved workflow? So as always, I'll go back to the necessary conditions that this topic is addressing. So we're really going to look at how improving flow can meet the needs of the organization and also establish that positive change in organizational culture. So our Dilbert cartoon for this week on what is not flow. So the boss says, I can't improve your budget because you didn't follow the 17-step workflow procedure. And Dilbert says it's not humanly possible to follow any company workflow procedure and also accomplish anything useful. The boss says, would it help if I added a few steps? He said, yes, if you go back to your office and do it. Okay, so the goal here isn't to add more and more steps to a process. That's the opposite of flow. And we see a lot of companies that add all these steps back into their processes, and we'll talk about some of the root causes for that today. And those extra added steps don't translate into improved work. It just adds more steps and makes things more complicated. So we really want to talk about synchronous flow. So we're going to go back to our diagram we did in the first session on the boat, right? So the boat scenario, we're really looking for improved flow, synchronous flow. So again, we have this one boat that's everyone's synchronized and working in tune to meet the customer demand. If everyone's working synchronized, then we can achieve meeting our customer demand at an accelerated pace. If we have one person is trying to be really efficient, this one is rowing 3 times faster than everyone, then that really doesn't get the boat moving in the most effective manner towards the goal. So that's the difference between effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness, we're getting everybody to work together towards a common goal. Efficiency, everyone's trying to be efficient in their own department, and that usually hurts the overall system performance. So think about a symphony, because we talk about synchronous flow. So if we go to a symphony orchestra, again, it's not the goal of every person in the orchestra to play their music as fast as possible. That would be efficient. It's the goal to play in sync. There's a time to play and there's a time to stop playing, right? So that creates beautiful music when everybody's in sync. It's the same thing in operations. We want everyone to be in sync to the customer demand. So it doesn't matter what type of organization you are. If you're a service organization, a healthcare provider, a manufacturer, a school, you can identify what flow looks like in your environment and then understand what activities we can do to improve the flow in the organization. Improving that flow brings many benefits with very few negative side effects. So let's talk about what is flow and understand what flow is all about. So there's 3 main flows in any organization. So the first, we have our value-added steps. So we have the supplier, value-added steps, and the customer. So this is a typical flow within an organization. So depending on what your customer needs are, we talked about that in previous sessions, you're going to design your system to satisfy those customer needs. And then you have also people that might supply information to your organization that are needed to perform the value-added steps to meet the customer's needs. In between the steps is work in process. Okay, so that could be physical material. It could be some paperwork that you need to do. So with every value-added step, there's probably some work in process that's sitting between each value-added step. So if this is a generic picture of an organization, which should fit any organization. So if I'm a healthcare provider, right, the customer comes in, they do the check-in. So the first value-added step is a check-in process, right? Then they sit in the waiting room. Then they're brought into the exam room, and the nurse might take your blood pressure and your weight and that type of thing, right? Then you're sitting in queue again until the doctor shows up to do his diagnosis, right? So it doesn't matter what the organization, you can define what those value-added steps are, and you can define what the queue time is between the value-added steps. So if we look at the flows, the three generic flows are information flow. So information typically flows from the customer back through our organization to our suppliers, okay? The second flow is the value-added flow. So that flows from the supplier to our customers. And the third flow is the most important, cash flow. Okay, so cash flow flows from the customers back to our suppliers, the same direction as information flow. So if you're looking for your organization to improve cash flow, we need to either improve the information flow, improve the value-added flow, or both, right? I'm a proponent of improving both. Improving the information flow, improving the value-added flow is going to improve cash flow. So if you want long-term sustainable cash flow, you have to address these two other flows. Yes, there's activities you can do to get short-term improved cash flows, but they're not sustainable over the long term. Okay, so this is the basis of our flow, is understanding these three flows in the organization. Now, if we look at the activities within the flow, we have activities that are value-added activities, and these are activities that actually transform the product or service one step closer to what the customer is demanding. Okay, so there's activities that we do within the organization to meet our customer needs. We define those as value-added activities. There's also non-value-added activities. These are activities that don't transform the product or service closer to what the customer is demanding, but they're things that we just do within our organization. So if I look at a timeline with a bar, what would pour flow look like? So you see the red is non-value-added activities, and then the green are value-added activities, okay? So over time, so just think about the doctor's office, right? You come in, you do your check-in process, you wait in the waiting room, right? They bring you in, the nurse does her activities, then you wait for the doctor to show up, then, right, he goes out, and then you have to maybe take some blood work or do some other things, and so you're waiting for the next activity to happen. Okay, what improved flow would look like is you come in, you go through the first activity, there's a very short wait time, you go to the next activity, very short wait time, go to the next activity, and the total time from start to finish is reduced, in this case, in half. What you notice about this is the value-added time didn't change, but the lead time changed, right? So we didn't focus on cutting the cycle time of these value-added steps. The focus is to eliminate these red areas, which is where the biggest opportunity are. Okay, so one of the things we look at when we're looking at flow is what's the ratio of value-added to non-value-added work. Typically, it's less than 5%. So next time you go to the doctor's office or go to the dentist's office, check the time on your watch when you go into the office, and then each time somebody's actually speaking with you or touching you, record that time, and then record the time that you leave, and what you'll find is that you're in the office an hour and a half, and you probably were touched 5 minutes, okay? So that's what we're talking about here, is not focusing on the touch time, which is a value added, but focusing on the non-value added activities that are going on. So what are the contributors to poor flow? So take this for your own organization and see if you have any of these things that are contributing to poor flow in your own organization. So one is a cost reduction mentality. So we need to switch the mentality from the cost world thinking to the flow, or we call throughput world thinking. So what are cost world mentalities? One is reducing workforce to save cost. So, oh, we're losing money, so let's lay off people to save cost. So what we find here is that the labor cost is usually a small portion of the total operating expense. So by laying off one person, you might be saving maybe 0.5% in cost. But depending on what department they're working in, it could reduce the capacity by 25%. And when we reduce capacity by 25% in a particular department, it extremely disrupts flow. Okay, so we need to change that mindset from a cost savings to improving flow mentality. Another thing in the cost world that causes poor flow is isolated cost reduction decisions. So we're having somebody in their department make a decision to optimize the cost in their department, which is causing huge negative effects in other departments. I talked about this in another session where we have a manufacturer that the purchasing guy is looking to reduce purchase costs, so he's buying cheap material. The tooling cost tripled. Okay, so the expense in tooling dwarfed the savings that he was trying to achieve in material savings. Okay, so cost reduction isn't the main focus. Flow is the main focus, but what we find is that we get cost reductions as a result of doing improved flow. Another contributor is batching work. So driving high efficiency and high utilization everywhere, right? Everyone needs to be busy and doing something. So to keep people busy, let's batch work together and make sure that people have enough work to do for a shift or the day and make sure everyone's highly utilized, okay? Also, batching decision making. So how do we batch decision making? We wait for meetings to make a decision. So the people don't have the authority or capability or the trust to make the right decision. So we do meetings and we wait for a decision-making process in our meetings. Or, for example, if you go to apply for a new mortgage, right, the bank only reviews mortgages every week. Okay, so if I apply on a Monday and Monday's the day that they approve mortgages, I got to wait till the following week to get my mortgage approved. Okay, so batching decision-making prolongs the process and disrupts the flow. The wrong performance metrics. So if we're measuring people, so we talked about this in our KPIs seminar, that if we have the wrong performance measures, we're going to get the wrong behaviors. So if we have performance measures that are aligned with cost savings ideas, we need to recalibrate to them to be performance measures that are flow-based performance measures. Next is bad multitasking. So what is bad multitasking? It's switching from one task to another before finishing a task. So we start working on something and then we get interrupted and we're forced to go work on another task before we finish the task we're working on. Bad multitasking or task switching is extremely poor. It's extremely bad for improving flow, right? It delays and also increases quality issues. The last one is poor problem solving skills. So what I find is that people aren't good at problem solving and they assume they know the problem, the solution before they've actually defined the problem. And what they do is they end up adding more steps in the process. So just like the Dilbert cartoon, oh, I'll add more steps in the process, that'll make it better. So what happens is if you're not good at problem solving, people put additional non-value added steps in the process. So I have a general rule of thumb. If the solution to your problem, when you go through your root cause analysis, is another non-value added step, you didn't get to the root cause. So now we've added more non-value added and increased the lead time and the queue time and sometimes actually increase the cost. So adding more non-value added steps in the process is an indicator that we didn't get to the root cause. So when we talk about achieving flow, the focus should be on non-value added activities and flowing value from start to finish in the most effective manner. Okay, so we want to transition from that batch and queue mentality to synchronous flow. And if you start analyzing your processes, you'll see all the areas that information's getting batched, or decisions are getting batched, or materials are getting batched, and that's causing the poor flow in the organization. So there's many benefits of improving flow within the organization, and actually almost zero negative side effects of improving flow. So what we see when we improve flow, one is quicker response to the customer. So we're actually shortening the lead time from when the customer asks for something until we can deliver that service or product to them. Next is reducing the work in process. So the queue time is a function of how much work in process is in the system. So if we reduce the work in process, we actually can shrink the queue time and improve the flow. It also improves quality. So the less work in process and the less task switching or multitasking people are doing actually improves quality. So we actually see a gain. So here's an example where we see a gain in cost reduction as a result of improving flow. So it's amazing, many projects that I've done. So I did a project in Louisville, Kentucky. So they had a problem with scrap. So they had about an 8% scrap problem, right? So 8% of what they're making was scrap. So we did 0 quality initiatives. We improved the flow. Scrap reduced to 3%. So we got a 5% gain by just improving flow and not focusing on quality. So that's the improved benefit of improving flow without focusing on quality. Next is improved cash. So we're converting. So if we can convert that work in process to cash, that's one benefit, but also if we're reducing the information lead time and we're reducing the product or service lead time, the value added component, we're going to improve our cash flow. Next is we actually get reduced costs as a result of doing the improved flow. So I talked about the quality one. I have another example where a company is a tool and die shop, and they would get an order and they'd release it immediately into production. Okay, so they had like 300 and some jobs on the floor, chaos everywhere, late orders, all this cash tied up in materials. So we said, okay, we're going to wait, and we're not going to release stuff as soon as we get it. We're going to wait until the right time is to release it and flow it from start to finish as fast as possible. What this did, it allowed the purchasing guy to actually go out and source material from different vendors. So when you're in a rush to get things, you're going to take the first one that can deliver, and whatever price they charge is what they charge. But if I can source multiple people and find somebody that can give us a better price, that's a benefit. So we're actually able to reduce their material costs by 50% just by improving the flow. Okay, so again, cost reduction isn't the main objective. Cost reductions come as a result of improving flow. It's a side benefit of the flow improvement. So our overview to the flow, okay, the objective is to drive organizational effectiveness, not individual process efficiency. Improving flow. Focus on reducing and eliminating the contributors to non-value added activities. So remember, our whole operational excellence focus is do what should be done, don't do what shouldn't be done. Okay, so doing what should be done is focusing on identifying those contributors to non-value added activities. Okay, focusing what should not be done, don't focus on reducing the value added time. Our goal isn't to shrink the task time. Okay, change the mindset from cost reduction to improving flow. Understand and communicate the benefits of improving flow, which we talked about on the previous slide. And there's almost no negative side effects of improving flow. Eliminate the metrics that induce cost reduction behaviors. So if you have metrics in your organization that are inducing people to take cost reduction activities, eliminate those. And then be great problem solvers and drive to the root cause of flow disruptions. Not getting to the root cause. If you see indications where people are putting more non-value added steps in the process, you didn't get to the root cause. Okay, so if you want to learn more about these concepts. We'll go in depth in the Operational Excellence one-day workshop that we have coming up. Also, when we do our design sprint process, our main objective is to understand those 3 flows in the organization and what is causing disruptions to information flow, what is causing disruptions to the value-added flow, and of course, if we improve one of those, cash flow is going to improve dramatically. Okay, so if you want more information on our design sprint process, send us some information. We'll send that information. We also have it on our website. So here's our website. And with that, we have our upcoming sessions. So Delana, if you want to talk about the upcoming sessions.
Sure. On behalf of JCC's Workforce Readiness and Future State Engineering, I wanted to thank everyone for attending today's session. As Max shared with you, we do have 2 lunch and learn sessions left. June 10th is being productive versus busy work, and June 17th is developing an employee skills matrix. Max, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yep. So next week, we're going to do a little bit deeper dive on the concept of value-added work and non-value-added work. And then to create flow, sometimes we have to flex our resources from one area to another area where we have bottlenecks building up. So supporting that is the June 17th one on developing the employee skills matrix. And if I need to flex an employee from Department A to Department B, what skills does he need to be able to transfer him in when he moves into that other role to be effective, right? So what we don't want to do is transfer somebody and then they start making a bunch of scrap, okay? Or a bunch of rework, or they do the process wrong and then it creates more work for the people, okay? So these 2 next sessions are supporting the flow concept that we're talking about today. That's why these 3 were in a module together.
Great, thank you, Max. And then if you have liked what you're learning in the lunch and learn sessions and want to take a deep in conjunction with JCC, we are offering 2 workshops. They're 2 actually 8-hour workshops. They're both online. The first one is Introduction to Operational Excellence, which goes more in depth on how to create a high-performing organization. And dates for that are June 23rd, 25th, June 30th, and July 2nd. And the second one is Creating and Sustaining a Quality Culture with Accountability, and that is July 14th, 16th, 21st, and 23rd, and both of those are from 9 a.m. to 11. If it's something you'd like to register for, feel free to reach out to Kathleen Martell at JCC, and she can get you registered. Thank you very much.
So now we'll take questions. So is there any questions or comments in the chat box?
Not yet. Does anyone have any questions?
I guess not.
I think you covered everything well today.
Okay, so thanks for everyone for attending. Look forward to seeing you next week.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day.